Let's talk about functions, which are an essential part of any programming language. What functions help us do is wrap up some code into its own little container so we can call it later. Now, one thing I want you to know is as we learn Objective-C, we are going to learn methods, which are a type of function that act upon classes and objects. So you're probably going to use those a lot more, but it's important to understand the functions and how we'd write them in Objective-C, and this is the same way we'd write them in C. I'll start here. I'm going to write a simple function here called shush. It's going to take no parameters. I'll explain this all in just a second. And what it's going to do is just print sh to the console. Okay, so here we have this void keyword. What this is the return type, which you'll understand a little more after this video. It is what the function gives us. And void says that it doesn't give us anything. It just executes the code in the function and carries on. There's no value that we can extract at the end, or not even the end. It could be the middle of the function. So we have this shush function. And if we were to run this program, nothing's going to happen. That's because we didn't call this shush function. In Objective-C, we have a main function. This is actually a function itself. It returns an integer. That's why we have return 0 down here. This is where our program starts, within this function, within this main function. So we need to call our shush function within that function. So we can write, it will give us autocomplete. We'll run it now. And now you should see it output to the console, shh. So when I wrote this shush function, I have void, which is the return type, shush, which is the name of the function. We have camel case to make our function names the same way we'd write variable names, but they want to be descriptive of what the function is accomplishing. And also the parameters here. Now this is just two parentheses because there are no parameters to this function. I'm going to write a more complicated function right under this that is going to return a double, and it's going to be called multiply then square. It's going to take two doubles as parameters. I'm going to explain this in just a second. So multiply then square is a function that returns a double. It's not void, so it actually returns something, and it has two parameters, parameter A and parameter B. These you can think of as variables that are going to be used within the confines of the function. So A and B are our parameters, and doubles are the data type that our parameters are going to be. Let's write out the code for this function. We're going to multiply A and B, and then we're going to return the square root. So this is another function that's in the foundation library of Objective-C, which is sqrt, finds the square root of a double and returns a double itself. Let's just go back and look at that one more time. This is a function declaration itself. The name of the function is sqrt, square root. It returns a double, and its parameter is a double. So we have to feed it a double, it returns a double. So we're going to return the double that this sqrt function returns. So the square root of the product is the value we'll return. Let's see how we're going to call the multiply then square function within the main function. Type multiply then square. The autofill, Xcode's autofill knows about my function. So it takes a double A and a double B, so I have to give it values. Let's give it 5.6 and 3.1, completely random numbers. The problem is if we run this now, if we build and run this now, nothing's going to happen. Because we're not printing anything in this function, we're just returning a double. Let's store it in a variable name. We'll call this double answer. And then we will print answer. %f as our float/double placeholder, and answer is our variable name, so we'll print the answer. Let's build and run that. So here is our answer, 4.166533. That's our multiply then square function. So you may have noticed I wrote these functions above the main method, which is what you're going to want to do. You don't want it in the main method. You're going to call them in the main method. But let's see what happens if we take these. I'm going to cut and paste them and put them underneath the main method, the main function, sorry. So we have errors here. Conflicting types. So we have all these errors and warnings after I simply move them from on top of the main function to below the main function. Because what these two are the method, I'm sorry, I keep saying method, you'll see why later on in this video series, are the function implementations. We have to declare them above. I'm going to write so I'm writing the declarations up here, and you're going to see those errors go away. But it would be better to copy and paste this. I prefer to write the whole implementation up top so I don't have to do this, but I just want you to know that this happens. You need to have your declarations above the main method. Now, what's the issue here? Let's troubleshoot this. I have this comma right after double. That goes away, and our error should go away. Perfect. So it's important to understand what constitutes a function. We have our return type, so the data type our function returns, the name of our function, and any parameters our function might take. Now, right here are not parameters, these are arguments. That's what we gave the function to use for its parameters. Refer to those as arguments. And we don't have to give them explicit values. We can also create variables. My double, that equals 5.6. And I also have another double, my other double, which equals 3.1. Now I can replace that here with the variable names. And we'll get the same result. So functions and later on methods are both very important. We're going to use them a lot. They're fundamental to anything we're going to do. So just understand that we need to wrap particular pieces of code within some sort of identifier so we can call them later in our program, and we can often call them multiple times with multiple different arguments for their particular parameters. So just know that this is how you create a function. This is the architecture of a function, and this is the implementation as opposed to the declaration, which is just up here. You'll see plenty more with functions and later on methods. We'll talk more about functions and their scope in the next video.